He's there. Robert, it's 9 o'clock if you want to. Nine. Morning, Wes.
Morning, morning.
I am too. I never take a Friday off, but I'm gonna. Okay. All right. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock. This is the agenda review session for the Board of County Commissioners, and April 7th, 2022. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Please turn your cell phone to the vibrate, silence, or off setting. The Board of County Commissioners allows any person to speak during our regular meeting later this afternoon, and we always allow 3 minutes. This morning, we're going to go through this agenda rather quickly. This evening, our invocation will be brought by Commissioner May. Not here, but I'll check him off. Commissioner Berry, would you like to do the pledge this evening? Okay, so Commissioner Berry will do the pledge. Okay, and let's go ahead and talk about, are there any items to be added to the agenda? Madam Attorney?
No, sir. They've all been put into the agenda.
Okay, Commissioner Bender?
No, sir.
Commissioner Berry? Any add-ons? No? Okay, and I assume there's none from Doug or Commissioner May, but we'll see later today. All right, quick Commissioners Forum. Commissioner Bender?
I'll wait for tonight.
Okay, me too. Anything from you, Wes, this morning?
No, sir.
All right, then we'll jump right into our presentation this evening, number 6. Obviously, Commissioner Berry is going to present that, and then we're going to have proclamations. Looks as though we will have 3 that we will adopt and 1 that we will ratify. So the first one will be adopting the proclamation commending and congratulating Heather Gresham. I assume Chips Kirschenfeld will present that one?
Chips or Tim?
Chips or Tim? Okay. The next one will be adopt the proclamation congratulating the Pensacola Christian College women's basketball team, the Lady Eagles. Commissioner Bender, that's your district? Okay. All right. The next one will be adopt the proclamation proclaiming the month of April 22 as Donate Life Month in Escambia County and proclaiming Friday, April 22nd, 2022 as National Blue and Green Day, encouraging everyone to wear blue and green to help promote organ, eye, and tissue donation. Who would like to present that one this evening? Commissioner Berry? Oh, is that Commissioner May? All right, Commissioner May. Since he's not here, we'll assign him that. There we go. All right, and then we'll ratify one that will be presented that was already presented. Okay, written communication, Madam Attorney.
Sure. This one is in District 4, and I have provided the information to Commissioner Bender. This is a request from Haney Wassef, requesting relief from code enforcement lien against a prior owner, which was Olive Road Investments, LLC. And then there was a second code enforcement lien against a different prior owner, which was an LLC actually controlled by his spouse. In June of 2017, the property at 2218 East Olive Road was sold by tax deed to God Pleasing LLC, and the special magistrate's order against the original owner, Olive Road Investments LLC, was recorded prior to the tax deed, so the lien does attach. The title to the property at 2218 East Olive Road passed through another company controlled by the spouse, Heritage Professional Academy, LLC, before it was eventually conveyed to Wassef. Both deeds from the companies controlled by his spouse were for very nominal consideration. Both Mr. Wassef and his wife have previously requested relief from the administrator, who, pursuant to our policy, denied the request. And it's a very significant lien that is attaching, because there are 2 separate properties whose liens do attach to this property. The total amount is $108,250 for the one property and $9,515 for the other. In addition, we confirmed with the tax collector's office that the 2218 East Olive Road parcel is delinquent in its property taxes, and they have still not been collected for the 2020 or 2021 years.
All right, Commissioner Bender, what do you want to do with this?
I mean, given all the facts, I would take no action.
You want to drop it?
I mean, he's not gonna be here. I mean, he sent some written communication in on his behalf, but, I mean, given all the facts, I have.
So your intention is to
Yeah.
make no motion, take no action?
No motion tonight.
Okay, all right, we'll leave it on the agenda, and we'll just be ready for that. Okay, did the clerk's office receive the proofs of publication for the public hearings on the agenda and the board's weekly meeting schedule?
Mr. Chairman, the clerk's office did receive all proofs.
Outstanding. Okay, next, we'll talk about the public hearing. This evening, we have a 5:31 public hearing to consider the petition to vacate a portion of the Silver Ridge subdivision plat. Allison, is that something you want to talk about? Or is that Horace?
Horace.
Horace, you're recognized? Yep.
Mr. Chairman, this is off Highway 97. The petitioner is asking to vacate about a 1-foot wide strip going along the front of his property there on 97. He does have an option to access that property off of cul-de-sac. However, the communication says that in order to do that, he would face significant wetland impacts, and therefore that is the reason he's requested us to vacate the property there on 97, 1 foot wide.
Jennifer, is there anything you want to add to that, or any issues, Stephen, in your district?
The fact that he has access off a cul-de-sac is, that's somewhat, somewhat took note of that. It is allowing more access off of Highway 97, which, has a lot of traffic right now. But I'll wait and see. We've gotten a little bit of communication from residents. Wait and see if anybody comes and, kind of airs any concerns.
Okay.
I just will kind of note, one of the things that I did take note of was when the petitioner acquired the property, just kind of in the thought that, maybe it was acquired recently, knowing there was access off the cul-de-sac, and then trying to solve the problem after a recent acquisition, as we see frequently. And, it appears he's had the property for more than 20 years, so that kind of took that off the table. So I'm open-minded to it. I'll wait and see if anybody comes in and really airs any concerns, but that's good enough for this morning.
Sounds reasonable. Okay, 5:32, public hearing to adopt the Meadows subdivision street lighting MSBU ordinance. I don't see any issues, any questions on that from the board? All right, go forward from there. Clerk and Comptroller's report. Madam Clerk, you're recognized.
Yes. We have 4 items on the agenda. One is the investment report for February for your review and approval for tonight. The other 3 are just routine documents, minutes, and reports for your review. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving forward now, we will go to the growth management report. Horace Jones, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Chairman,
Good morning.
Commissioners, and Board members. For tonight, we have the first rezoning case. Then we have our 545, the adoption of the official zoning map. We have the 546, this is the small-scale map amendment.
Wait, on the 545, Commissioner Berry, that's your district up there by Hillcrest Church?
You can't
Yes,
talk
yeah,
about
that's
the
what we-
rezonings here.
Okay, never mind. All right, please continue.
Yes, sir. We have 546. This is a small-scale map amendment. Then we do have we have a growth management action item, which is the final plat
Okay.
for McKenzie Ridge. And we do have the consent agenda for May the 5th.
All right, any questions from the board? Thank you, Horace. County Administrator's report. Wes, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number 1 is recommendation concerning a resolution supporting the designation of a portion of the Jones Swamp Preserve Nature Trail in memoriam to Dole Butler, former Natural Resources Management Division Manager. Number 2 is concerning a limited waiver of the Escambia County Noise Abatement Ordinance for the Pensacola Beach Soundside Merchants Crawfish Festival fireworks display. Number 3 is a limited waiver of the Escambia County Noise Abatement Ordinance for the 2022 Portofino seasonal fireworks display. Number 4 is concerning a certificate of public convenience and necessity for the provision of advanced life support in Escambia County. Number 5 is recommendation concerning the student internship agreement with Grand Canyon University. 6 is concerning the request for disposition of property for the office of the clerk of the circuit court and comptroller. 7 is request for disposition of property for the office of the state attorney. 8 is request for disposition of property for public works. 9 is concerning the interlocal agreement with the Santa Rosa Island Authority for 2022 mass transit beach trolley service. 10 is concerning the wellness incentive premium discount. 11 is concerning the scheduling of a public hearing to consider the petition to vacate a portion of John Paul Jones and Stoner Lane. 12 is concerning the approval of a utility service agreement between Escambia County and Emerald Coast Utility Authorities for Beulah Fire Station. 13 is concerning the adoption of a resolution approving a plan of finance for multifamily housing revenue bonds and authorize the Escambia County Housing Finance Authority the authority to issue not exceeding $62,500,000 multifamily housing revenue bonds for multifamily rental housing located in Orange County.
Okay, hang for one sec, Wes. Allison, once again, will you give your rationale for why we have to bring this on our agendas? Just for the public that sees it, they go,
Right.
you know, what does this have to do with us?
Escambia County is not financially responsible for the bond issuance or the repayment of these bonds. We are involved in this solely because it's the county's Housing Finance Authority created under state law by the Board of County Commissioners decades ago, and we are therefore obligated to bless the bond issuance that they are overseeing. This has been reviewed by the county's bond council, and there's no responsibility by the county. We are collecting $7,500 in legal and administrative fees from the Housing Finance Authority for the BCC's coffers in return for our review of the matter.
Yeah, and just a quick question, just to satisfy the curiosity of people who might have the same question. What happens if we didn't do this? Then what happens? Not that we wouldn't, but just playing devil's advocate a little bit.
It would be problematic. I do believe there is a method by which the Housing Finance Authority could ask the governor to bless this in lieu of us, but it does create some administrative headaches for the Housing Finance Authority. It
Sure.
is our creature that was legally created by our board, so the idea is that we are their partner.
All right, that's enough for me. I appreciate that. There's people that ask that question, so. All right, Wes, please continue.
Yes, sir. Number 14 is concerning the authorization for staff to start acquisition due diligence for the proposed purchase of 1100 West Scott Street. 15 is recommendation concerning the revision of the Human Resources Reinstatement Policy. I will note that this recommendation may be amended or dropped prior to this evening's session.
Okay. But for now, we're leaving it on.
Yes.
All right. Any questions? Nope.
If we do leave it on, I want to hold it for a little bit of a discussion.
Okay. All right, we'll hold 15 if we don't drop it. All right, Wes?
All right. Card 2-1 is concerning the issuance of a fiscal year 2021-22 purchase orders to Stryker Sales Corporation for the annual maintenance agreement for the Public Safety Department. 2 is concerning approval of E911 state grant application and associated NGA 911 service agreement. 3 is recommendation concerning the contract extension for pharmacy services, PD 16-17.05. 4 is concerning authorization to take action concerning defaulted contracts for reimbursement of training expenses. 5 is concerning a change order number 3 to purchase order number 220445 for JK Inc., doing business as JK Medical Staffing. 6 is concerning a change order number 1 to purchase order number 220444 for JK Inc., doing business as JK Medical Staffing.
And Wes, before we continue on, so we've had a number of these items, change orders, additional money that we have to put in, staffing. It's my understanding that we've completed the RFP, and you want to just mention?
We do have the RFP ready for review, and we will be distributing that to the board members for your review prior to putting it out on the street.
Okay, thank you. And that's the jail medical, because those costs are going straight up and skyrocketing. So this will be something we put out to see what the private market, the private sector might be able to do to save us money.
Yes, sir.
Because it's one thing to budget, but then we come back with all these change orders and increasing costs. And that's what we do every year. So appreciate you and Rich Powell and the rest of the team putting that together.
Absolutely.
And thanks, Jeff. And Wes, can we get an updated breakdown analysis and break it down on prescriptions, medical, and break down the medical, not just a lump sum?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so we can do the analysis and staff and what we're spending on mental health counseling. I want to, for me, Jeff, when this comes back, I mean, I would like, Wes, if we could have that if we could have it tonight, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
The entire breakdown of the expenditures of the jail.
Sure.
All right, thanks.
I appreciate that, Lumen. All right, I'm sorry, Wes, please continue.
Number 7 is fiscal year 21-22 purchase order in excess of $25,000 to Federal Eastern International for the purchase of 49 ballistic vests under the Florida Department of Law Enforcement FDLE Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant. Number 8 is State Law Enforcement Trust Fund. 9 is concerning the contract award for PD 21-22.02 geosynthetics for Perdido landfill expansion. 10 is concerning an application for certificate of need for Hulks hauling and land development. 11 is concerning a purchase order for repairs and restoration of beach trolleys. 12 is concerning the memorandum of agreement regarding the administration of Federal Transit Administration 5307 funds for the Pensacola, Florida, Alabama urbanized area. 13 is concerning the interlocal agreement between Escambia County, Florida and the Santa Rosa Island Authority relating to animal control officer services on Santa Rosa Island. 14 is concerning the issuance of fiscal year 2021-22 purchase orders in excess of $25,000 for the Parks and Recreation Department. 15 is concerning commercial property insurance for the Escambia County Jail. 16 is concerning the issuance of a purchase order for annual smart bench maintenance for court administration. 17 is recommendation concerning change order number 2 to purchase order 220380 for Blue Arbor Services in excess of $25,000 for purchasing. Recommendations concerning conveyance of a deed of conservation easement for Wellline Road. 19 is concerning the conveyance of real property to the Florida Department of Transportation. 20 is also concerning the conveyance of real property to the Florida Department of Transportation. 21 is recommendation concerning the contract award for repair and maintenance contract on the 6 elevators at the new correctional facility. This particular item will be dropped tonight so that legal will have ample time to review that contract.
Okay.
22 is concerning modification 3 to federally funded subgrant agreement number 19 HM H401-27-01-201, project number 4177 from the Florida Division of Emergency Management for the construction of the Lake Charlene drainage improvements.
Hey, Wes, on this one, we talked about this, and then for the audience and those might be watching, we're going through this rather quickly, but that's because each of us have had this information, and we've each had a thorough debrief with staff. On this particular item, though, Wes, I just, help me understand here with this project. Is it FEMA wanting us to do additional work now over there?
Well, what happened is we put the project out to bid. Our initial estimate was like 2.2 million. The actual bids came in about double that. And so we've reached out to FEMA, let them know what the bid was. And their posture right now is that because the cost benefit analysis was done significantly prior to early on in the project, and now that the bids have come in double, they seem to think that the cost benefit analysis does not warrant the award of the grant. So where we're at right now is we are looking for an extension so we can continue to work with FEMA.
But no additional dollars going in
But
from
no
us.
additional dollars. Well, even that, what they're saying is because in their mind, the cost benefit analysis does not warrant the grant, they don't even want to fund the initial $2 million. So we are trying to work through that.
Well, okay, just help me understand. So the original $2 million that they had already authorized, they're pulling it back.
That is their communications right now.
Okay, so if that happens, that project probably dies more than likely?
It's a good possibility.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Seeing none, please continue, thanks.
All right. 23 is concerning the contract award for PD 21-22.023 Perdita Key Drive at Johnson's Beach Road Roundabout Project. 24 is concerning issuance of a purchase order for design services for the Rocky Branch Road Dirt Road Paving and Realignment Project. 25 is concerning the issuance of a purchase order relating to Hurricane Sally for the engineering department. 26 is concerning issuance of a purchase order for the Surrey Windsong Drainage Improvements Project. 27 is concerning a change order on contract PD 12-13.001 to Gulf Marine Construction, Inc. for the Pine Barren Road Bridge.
And what was the reason for this change order?
I think part of it was a planned rehab, and then we had some FEMA work that became apparent, and so this is adding the FEMA work to it. So a portion of this we will be reimbursed for.
Okay, all right.
Number 28 is the funding for St. Vincent de Paul Alfred Washburn Center. 29 is concerning the Jackson Street Sidewalk Project. 30 is concerning the funding for the American Heart Association Heart of Pensacola's Dinner on the Grounds. And that is number 1. And call our discussion is concerning the Greater Rolling Hills Community Environment Assessment.
Is Chip's going to provide a presentation this evening, or, I don't,
Yes, Chips does plan to do a presentation this evening.
And so we're gonna be reimbursed for this, because I know this number was a high number that was a little concern I had. But is this gonna be reimbursable? What's gonna be the actual cost to us, Tim?
It's, so the ask is approximately $450,000. We've applied for a grant that we feel very confident we'll receive, that's $378,000. So we're looking at expenditure of about $75,000, $80,000 that would not be reimbursable.
Okay, okay.
thanks, Tim. All right, item number, oh, is that it? That's all we got from you?
That's all we got.
All right, Madam Attorney, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. There are 3 action items on the county attorney's report for this evening. The first one is the final settlement of the Jankowski case within the board's direction. Item number 2 is the chairman's letter that we discussed at the last board meeting regarding the FPL rates.
Commissioner Bender, you're recognized.
Yeah, and Jeff, thanks for putting this together.
Sure.
I had a town hall last night, so I got to hear a lot of complaints
I've been hearing a
last
lot.
night. And I appreciate this. I am wondering, though, if it was maybe suggested that we ask for a town hall here by the rate commission to explain why rates are what they are.
That's what I've requested in the letter, that they have their hearing here.
But it's asking for a hearing. So I think the difference is that the hearing, there's not a precedence that it's ever been done before. Whereas I think the town hall, we could probably make that happen.
We can add that in.
And so, and it would be here. And so I thought that's a great idea.
Yeah.
You know, just some of the,
We can add it to that, to the same bullet where I've requested that they do it.
Yeah, I think
here.
so.
We could say, and if you can't, if you're unable to do that, then we specifically request that you have a town hall.
I
so
think
there's-
that would be great. Yeah, I don't want to ask for one and not get either one.
Yeah, we'll get one or the other,
Yeah,
hopefully.
I think that'd
We
be
might
great.
get nothing.
I think we can get the town hall. I mean, I'd hope we could get that.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I think it's, you know, there's a lot to unload there. You know, of course, you know, the different types of energy, things like that. You know, we just transitioned from coal back when natural gas was a lot cheaper.
Yep, and look what happened. Bang.
Yeah, and so, we didn't know that was the way natural gas was gonna go when they did it, but,
And it's only going to go higher.
yeah. So, anyway, all right.
All right, so board, so I will make that suggested change, but anyone else have issues with it as it stands? Seeing none? Okay, so I'll make that change, and I'll bring it back revised tonight for the vote. I'll add that. Just a town hall meeting of the commissioners from the Public Service Commission here in our chambers, or in Pensacola. Okay, easy enough. No, I haven't seen that. No. See, I added in my letter to have them do their hearing here, but that's a great idea to add a town hall too, but, there's no guarantee they're going to do it.
I think that I think in the town hall, we could make the case for I don't, again, from what I've heard, they've never just looked at the rate hearing again. And so I think if we wanted them to do a town hall to listen to what our concerns are, I think that would.
All right, I'll make that.
And then we make the case on maybe why, if we still feel that way, that it needs to be reevaluated.
Good enough. I'll make the change and bring it. It'll be ready tonight.
So have the other letters from the other municipalities already been sent off, Jeff?
Yes, sir. Yep. And I used them kind of as a template, but I added a few things. I personalized it a little bit.
Oh, you always have that personal touch.
I try. Opinions vary. All right.
Well, yeah.
Madam Attorney.
Thank you, sir. The last action item is substituting in Cole, Scott, and Kassane for Mr. Hammonds in the jail litigation. And there are 2 discussion items. Number 1, this is Commissioner Bender's request regarding the potential letter to Governor DeSantis about vetoing Senate Bill 620.
All right, Robert, you want to set the table for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just something that we're seeing throughout the state, and that this is taking away home rule. It's of course, making it more litigious. And I think it's preventing our ability to put in place what citizens have requested us to do. And then, of course, I touch on three of the things that we feel that haven't been fully vetted in terms of water quality. So if we did anything regarding water, that could have an impact on the business, that we could then be sued for them not being a polluter. For the, we've taken action on opioids and things like that before, so it would probably potentially cut that off. And then, of course, a few years ago, we had the issue with the internet cafes and taking advantage of elderly, things like that. That, again, we feel like this could preclude us and even open us up to lawsuits where we're having to pay taxpayers' monies and damages should we lose. So I think there's a very real possibility. I mean, I've talked to the governor's office about this when I was over in Tallahassee. They continue to ask questions about it. A number of our sister counties and cities have sent similar letters. And I think to make sure that the governor hears that this is not good for local governments and our home rule.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily disagree, but during the session, when I talked to Ginger and I talked to Davin, and the opinion from FAC, and you're probably aware of this, was that the language was changed and revised to a point where it wasn't so onerous for the county. So I just don't understand the 180.
Well,
Why the 180?
I'd say that it was, of course, FAC helped with some of those negotiations.
Right.
And that's why you're not seeing this coming from FAC, where the members can do what they want. And although there were definitely some changes that improved the language, I think it's still too far.
All right. And about how many counties do you think are going to be sending these letters? I know that, I think Marion County sent one.
I know Palm Beach probably sent it 2 weeks ago.
Did they?
Pasco, I think, sent it.
I know Charlotte County,
Walton
we got
sent
that
it.
confirmation last night.
There was one that had, what, 15
Municipalities.
mayors or something?
Yeah.
16 mayors?
So like,
Some of them-
Allison, do you have a sense of like how many municipalities and counties?
I
Dozen?
have not seen a survey, but we did put in the backup one that was signed by several municipalities' mayors.
Okay.
I know the Charlotte County attorney reached out to us yesterday to provide their letter that Charlotte County has sent. I know that Walton County did theirs at their board meeting last week. It does seem to be not unusual. I don't have a survey of what
Okay,
percentage.
no worries. No, I want to be supportive. I'm going to support it, Robert. I just, sometimes these things boomerang, and people over there have long memories. And, when they pass something, they do it for a deliberate purpose, typically. And so, you're going to ruffle some feathers with this, but I'm happy to sign it, happy to support it.
Yeah, I think you look at, I think from what I've heard when I was over there, some of the causes of why this came into place was, I think one of them was Miami Beach, reducing the hours of operations for their bars and nightclubs from 5 a.m. to 2 a.m. And then you see what happened during spring break, and I think that would even take away our opportunity to take care of any situations like that that arise that we need something. You look at other ordinances that coastal communities have put in place around spring break. I think we're very fortunate we haven't had to do that. Instead, we stepped up our law enforcement, and I think also our target customer is not the same as to Panama City. But on the other hand, we don't want our options taken away from us based on what the citizens are asking us to do. So again, it's I understand that the legislator wants Florida open for business. They want all 67 counties open for business, and I want that as well, but I think it's severely restricting our own powers.
I don't necessarily disagree, so thank you for that. All right, Madam Attorney, was there anything else? The
There's
broadband?
Yes, sir. The broadband study, and that was at the request of Commissioner Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Allison, I appreciate you putting this on the agenda. And given our efficiency this morning, if y'all don't mind, if it's either discussion this evening or discussion this morning, I can,
Yeah, let's do it
I can
right now.
guess what's more popular, so that's what I'll try to stick to what's more popular.
There'll be a lot of discussion tonight.
Well, we'll try to cut some of that off at the pass, perhaps. But and I believe Allison did distribute the the Magellan study, just a couple days
She
ago.
did.
We've been working on this as a broad issue for nearly 2 years since we got the first announcement of some CARES money coming in. One of the key things that was identified through the pandemic was what happens when folks don't have a reliable internet at home. I mean, we saw, there's 4 issues that were defined by DEO that showed these gaps, but, we didn't necessarily need DEO to tell us what these issues were. I mean, I think we were seeing it all, all 4 of us here were in office at the time. Schools were shut down. You had everyone trying to, educate themselves from home, trying to homeschool, basically by dictate, being dictated to that they would homeschool. You had many offices shut down, so you had a lot of people working from home. And on the other side of that, you end up with your healthcare facilities, shut down except for, dire emergencies, all, discretionary procedures or optional procedures weren't being done. So anyway, you had telehealth being a huge issue. These are all factors that may have played small roles prior to the pandemic, but were really highlighted during the pandemic as we have real gaps. And I think all across the country, a lot of these were identified. And I think it's really a lot of foresight that our board had, even out of the CARES money, like I said, the first tranche of dollars that came in, when we really didn't know how long it would last, would there be any more money coming? We didn't know, but at least we started down the road of the feasibility study to give an analysis of where the gaps were in the county and what kind of issues we had. And then as, the ARPA money came in last year, moved forward with a business plan and a design. And so what I'm going to ask the board to do tonight is accept the work product. There's a lot of data and analysis that's gone into the work product that Magellan's put together. I'd like the board to accept that work product as being done, their requirements being met. There's a lot of information that we're going to be able to utilize going forward. I was fortunate enough to have some in-person meetings with DEO last week, and got some good feedback. So we are and have dotted a lot of the I's and crossed a lot of the T's for the things that are going to be required to be on the front end of the grant programs and the partnering programs that DEO is going to have in place. And there's a lot of motivation. The legislature, everyone knows they allocated quite a bit of money to the programs this year. There's still going to be federal money coming in. There's other dollars that are going to come, but there are already dollars that are there now. And every expectation is they'll be standing up a grant program this summer, and I think we've got a very good chance to be on kind of the front end of that. But back to the study. So I'd like the board to accept it as a work product done and complete and their requirements being fulfilled. I do think that over the last 2 years, or nearly 2 years, the way the project has kind of manifested, there's been a lot of changes throughout the Magellan, especially this second phase of it, the feasibility and the business plan and the design. Through a lot of conversations and a lot of hard work from our board and TPO and our friends at TPO and our friends at DOT, especially District 3 DOT. We've got the Traffic Service Operations Center that's going to be housed at Public Safety.
Yep.
That's a fantastic thing. That's going to be where the brains for the Advanced Traffic Management System are going to run. We've been able to, thanks to help from DOT, but certainly a lot of help from Bart Siders with our IT director and his department, integrating what DOT's needs for ATMS, for that ATMS system would be into our design and our business plan. That's a huge deal. I think it's a huge deal to us. It's also a huge deal to DOT, that they've got a partner that's kind of this far along the path of getting something done that's going to aid them in that ATMS project, which has been, for a number of us that have been on this board, the ATMS system for the TPO has been the #1 priority ever since I've been on the board. The ITS, ATMS, ITS being Intelligent Transportation Systems. It was just such a big number that we weren't able to really make a whole lot of progress with it. That top number on the TPO work program was, I don't know, 50 million or some huge number for the, for the region. So that ATMS has been, kind of integrated into this. So I do think that this has identified really two, not necessarily two phases, because I think they can move forward for the most part, in a parallel fashion. But I think it's identified two clear instances of what needs to be served. The ATMS project for DOT is not going to be north of 9.5 Mile Road. Coincidentally, the vast majority of your unserved and greatly underserved folks on the internet are all north of that. Jeff, I think there may be some underserved folks in the west part of your district.
Yep, Beulah.
From that study, but for the most part, the high 90% of them are going to be above 9.5 Mile Road.
Correct.
So I think that makes somewhat of a natural line of delineation around 10 Mile Road and say, okay, if we're looking at the county as a whole through, everything so far has been done as a county as a whole. Well, if we take this study now and kind of divide it into two and say, okay, for 10 Mile Road North, let's go ahead and move forward. I've got to figure out a way to deliver this, to deliver access to this service to my constituents. It's one-time money. I do think that the southern part may not be quite as far to go in that discussion tonight. There were some discussions with DOT yesterday about some possible, which had not been on the table until very, very recently, some possible co-location of fiber in the core part, the southern part, including the ATMS. Previously, the feedback had been no co-location of fiber. Now, as just yesterday morning, the discussion was had that they may allow that co-location of fiber, which changes the cost structure for that core part as well. So, may not be ready to move quite as far on the southern part of the county this evening, but what I am going to ask is that we do start moving forward with the rural broadband part. What I'd like to do, rather than the business plan of the county owning and installing the fiber and becoming an internet service provider, where we're signing up households for utilization, those kind of things. And I don't dispute, I'm not an expert. I'm a lay person in all things in the 130 pages with the technology portion. But on the business side, I do think I don't dispute any of the numbers. I mean, all those things work. If everything goes like it's laid out there, that all works great. I think on the risk mitigation side, if something happens and things don't quite go like that, then I would be afraid that we would be, in a position where we're needing, more resources. Maybe we don't get as many, people sign up, or we lose, we lose subscribers, or we have, whatever issues. You have one of the satellite companies come and put $400 billion into something, and now it's available for $10 a month. If something happens after we kind of step off and take that financial risk, then whether it's us sitting on the dais or very likely a new swath of folks in, just say 10 years, I don't want to leave something in the ground that's going to be a huge burden, or that we then have to try to fire sale, or if something just doesn't go like the best case scenario. I always hope for the best case scenario. I won't speak for y'all, I will speak for my friend. Many of the things that we've, many of the paths that we've gone down have not ended up in best case scenarios. So at least to try to mitigate the risk of that possibly happening, what I'd like to do is say, okay, let's move forward with the northern half of the county, and then say, rather than the county owning and installing and becoming an ISP, or leasing the fiber to another provider, based on discussions, that's their, when they're going to get in, or when they're in that business and, going to bite off this type of project, I mean, they want to own, they want to own their own fiber. They're not necessarily interested in leasing from us, no matter which vendor, you talk to. So say, let's put a fixed amount of money in and say, okay, if the county puts $10 million towards this half of the county, the DEO grant program is going to be maximum of $5 million at a 50% match. So for one project from DEO for this, we would max at a $5 million grant from them.
And Steve, this is from the new federal infrastructure allocation, not from our previous, what we had discussed. We're using a different funding source.
On
'Cause-
which?
What?
On which part? The 10 million or the 5 million?
No, the 5 million that you're talking about.
The 5 million that's out of the 400 million that DEO has currently in hand.
Correct.
Now, there is certainly expectation that there's future money coming, but as we've seen with the Beulah interchange, which has been, obviously number one priority for us as well as for District 3, we had every expectation last summer that those dollars were going to drop from the sky very quickly, and we were really going to make a lot of progress quickly because that last construction large bucket was going to get filled with those monies first.
It didn't happen
And
yet.
it hasn't happened yet.
No, it
But-
hasn't happened yet. We got 9
So-
million for, I guess, more right-of-way acquisition.
Yeah, and that's making a lot of, the PD&E is important, the right-of-way acquisition, all those things are important, but yeah.
This is the
so-
year to fund the construction, though.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So, and I do have every faith, as recent as conversations had late last week with DOT, that when those things happen, it's going to get funded, and, so that's a good thing. But back to the DEO stuff, yeah, there's going to be more money coming in, but we're, right now, working with what's there. So, what I want to do is set aside 10 million of the 22 that the county has set aside for the overall project.
That's tonight. This is
Yeah,
what you're, okay,
yeah,
yeah.
for the north
So just to
part.
recap tonight's, accept the Magellan study, set aside 10 million of the 22 we already voted on, and then what else?
So, and the only real issue with the design, it's not really the design, but the eventual deployment to the actual residents is, we do want the private sector. We want the vendor, whoever our partner is. We want our partner to go into our county facilities. We want our partner service, making sure they get fiber to our community centers. We want them, getting to our parks. And we have put, if you recall, 18 months ago maybe, we put some high-speed stuff in pockets
our
out there.
parks. Yep.
Which now we'll see some of the benefit of that because those assets can now be part of this kind of spider web together network. But in the study, it's got the final, the final delivery to the home being through wireless access towers. And that's to me, that's not a long-term solution based on, conversations, with probably the handful of private partners that will bid on this. I don't want to, it is one-time money, which is again why I want to try to mitigate the risk where we're putting a fixed amount of money in that doesn't end up being a burden to our taxpayers.
Yeah, I like
Once
it.
we put the dollars in, our responsibility financially is gone then, and we're not putting more at risk. Secondarily, I don't want to use wireless access points. I want the fiber going to the home, and that's if we get 3 years from now, maybe the wireless access points work well for a while. Maybe they don't. That's similar to my cell phone. My cell phone doesn't work up there.
Right.
No offense to any providers, but it doesn't work, and I don't understand how that's possible, but it doesn't work well at all. So I don't want to get in a situation where, we unveil and we move forward with an unprecedented project, because that's what this is. It really is an unprecedented project.
Sure.
For something that's not really the county's wheelhouse. We need this partner to come in. We don't have much direct involvement with telecom and internet providers. We don't regulate those things. Those are state things. I learned that 10 years ago or 9 years ago when I first got in office and was unhappy with service delivery for my people, and I get told very quickly I have no authority.
Right.
Okay. Well, I still realize I have no authority, but at least I have some assets now to entice very strong partners to get engaged with us.
Have you been contacted by the same 3 companies? There's 3 entities that have contacted me, and they're very interested, and they want to offset our costs by partnering with us.
Yeah, I think it's very realistic that we'll have, I hope we have 15 folks interested in partnering, but I think realistically, it seems like 4 or 5. That's been the active number that
And
I've
I'm
engaged
very
with.
supportive, as you know, Stephen, I always have been and always will be. The only thing I'm concerned about is if we allocate and program 10 million of local money today, does that foreclose our opportunity to draw down this state money that came from the federal government under the infrastructure plan? Because they'll say, well, you can't supplant money that's already been allocated by local government. It's something we have to think about. And Allison, can you weigh in on that? Because I don't want to spend money locally and then have it say, well, you would have got the same amount from the state tranche from the federal government, but you've already programmed your local money. Is that a concern that we need to be aware of? If it's not, I'm on board, but I don't want to foreclose our opportunity to draw down federal money through the state by using money we've already got.
I don't know the answer this morning, but I know that I have a contact at DEO who's overseeing this.
They have the money already, don't they? They
Yeah,
have the money.
I think
They
so.
have this part. They have this 400 million.
Yeah.
And then there's a secondary grant program which is related to capital expenditures.
That's the one that I think is
That-
like
that's-
600 million.
Well, I think that might be a little smaller. Well, I know the maximum per project is smaller. I don't remember if the bucket was smaller or not. I can clarify that during the day. But it's still not the bigger dollars which are expected in the future. But, you know, I think that they're excited about, you know, Escambia County is one of the larger counties in the state that still has a large footprint of greatly underserved and unserved. You know,
Yeah.
most of the larger counties don't have this issue. So we're one of the larger counties that do. And especially when you incorporate one of the larger counties that do have this issue with how far along the process that we are, you know, we're almost to the finish line as far as having a plan and a design in place. And yeah, so what like I said, what I'm hoping to do is we allocate this. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean that can't change from, you know, the private vendor side. When public money is public money. If it's state or county or whatever, it
Sure.
doesn't make any difference to them. And you know, again, based on conversations, DEO is going to be they are going to be expecting and looking for the private vendor to have considerable capital in the project as well for us to receive, you know, the match.
Okay,
the $5
so the 10 million
So-
tonight, and I'm sorry to keep
Yeah.
asking you questions, but we never get to talk unless we're up here. So the 10 million tonight is not previous money we got from the rescue plan or the CARES Act?
No,
Or-
the 10 million is
from
10 of.
that. It's
ARPA
is-
funds.
It's 10 of the 22 out of ARPA that we set aside.
Okay, but what about the DEO money for broadband, that
So-
400 million? Where does that come in?
So that would be 5 million that we would be potentially eligible for. That, and the grant program is
So,
not,
okay.
it's not stood up yet.
Yeah, I know.
They're hoping for applications to be ready to
But
be
they
submitted.
haven't even given what that looks like yet. They haven't developed the rules yet. I don't believe that they've put them out.
Conversationally, a lot of the parameters are in place. There's not a physical application yet, no. But they are expecting that rather
So
soon.
we're going to pursue 5 million from there. So the
Yes.
pot's going to be 15 million.
That is certainly the
Okay.
certainly the expectation.
All right.
And
And so
then-
we saved the 12 million from not having to put the whole amount in by bringing in a partner and then getting the 5 million from the state.
And then, well, I mean, the biggest thing is that leaves that 12 million for the southern part of the project, the core project.
Right.
Which is a considerable portion of that, especially when you incorporate some DOT dollars coming in, which I do, I did get confirmation. May not get into a whole lot of details of the southern part tonight, but it did get confirmation. Like DOT is going to be putting substantial dollars into the core part of the core area as well because it includes their ATMS system.
Yep.
But that, like I said, that conversation about co-location yesterday morning is the first time that's been brought up. So that number they had committed last week may change some if the cost of their part of the project goes down considerably. You know, their contribution may go down some. It won't go away. They'll still be putting considerable dollars in. So it leaves 12 million for the core part of the project, which I know is important to public safety. That's this, you know, potential ring. That's these, you know, everything south of 10 Mile Road that needs to be done. It's everything that's going to tie into the TSOC there at public safety. The north half of it is not really, I mean, there's obviously no connection to DOT. There's not that connection to the TSOC. There's nothing like this. It really is, the way everything has manifested over the last 18 months, it's really become two separate issues. And what I'm saying is out of the 22 that we set aside, we allocate 10, a very realistic expectation, if not full expectation, that we can get 5 out of the state at least, if not some more.
For just the northern section?
For just the northern section. That
Right.
leaves us 12 behind in the southern section to also seek grants, state partnerships, federal dollars with, plus the DOT contribution. I think,
So the 22 is still going to be fully expended. That's the plan when we do the entire county.
we'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, and
I was excited. I thought we were going to save that 12 million.
the co-location part saves a lot of money because what was previously expected was there would have to be separate trenching or whatever, or separate lines for DOT. They had to be completely separate. And now if they can co-locate, that's a big cost savings.
Well,
for
I
the
look
project.
forward, you're going to bring this in a motion, and you're going to have a
and
detailed,
so it is going to, I mean, it's going to be pretty close to what was presented. Like I said, other than, I don't want the wireless access points to be the actual service available to the folks. I want my constituents to finally have access to real high-speed fiber internet in their homes, and
but that's where this private provider is going to
Yeah,
come in. It's not going to
absolutely.
say Escambia County on a wire to
No,
their house.
no.
We're not in
And-
that business.
No, and what I expect is that there's going to be a lot of interest. That's a big subsidy towards a project that that no one had kind of taken on before, but that's a big subsidy towards it. I think we're going to have those 3, 4, 5 people that are very excited, that put together very aggressive presentations to move
Yep.
forward. What I'm, the last part of tonight, what I'm going to ask is just that, that the board support, moving forward. I'd like the board to be the selection committee for this partner. It's a big deal.
Yes,
and
that's a smart decision based
Yeah.
on some other things we've seen.
So I'd like the board
Recently.
to be the committee to select that eventual partner. And I'm going to ask that y'all, kind of allow me to work with Bart and Kristen, and have, Bart and Kristen kind of work together on, I think she works, pretty intimately close with purchasing for the drafting of an RFP to go out to the private sector and say, look, we're going to put this in. This is the plan that we want. It's going to be, these number of miles servicing the county facilities, servicing, county parks, real, fiber to, real fiber to the homes, and see what we get. And Jeff, I do have enough experience doing this. It is very possible that when we get this feedback back from the private sector, some of my discussion, this 15 minutes this morning, may change a little bit. I don't know. But that's where I think we do our part of it and say, okay, here, what will you do? What can you deliver for this? I think we're going to be very excited about what they're going to deliver, because there's going to be, it's going to be considerable millions of dollars on their side put in as capital as well. And it's, and then we just see what we get back. And, back to what I said at the very, very beginning, a lot of times things don't go exactly like we plan, but at least by going forward here, we can get, and we'll get a real plan back from folks. And I do think that handful of people that you kind of referred to, that you've actually, also interacted with.
Some of them are even here.
Yeah, and they've had, because it's been public, what we've been doing, and we're 18 months into the whole process. I think there's a lot of engineering and a lot of cost estimates and a lot of things like that have already gone on.
Yeah.
I think that some of our partners that are more engaged with us, personally and our constituency, I think that some of them are pretty far along in this process, just waiting to see how much money are we going to set there? Did the legislature actually allocate the dollars? They put a grant program in place last year when I had that roundtable at Langley Bell at Stefani Extension last April. The legislature put the grant program in place, but they didn't put any money there.
Right.
But they did put the bones there. Well, so our partners in this instance, we're waiting to see basically what would we do. Would the legislature actually set aside, would they actually fund the program, which they did? So that's a good thing, and obviously those things have happened recently because the legislature, has just been working this spring. So I'm excited about moving forward with this part, and I'm hoping to bring a more extensive discussion about the core part of the county, what I'll call the core county project, in 2 weeks. And like I said, I had prepared a lot more discussion about that, but that was before some of the DOT feedback yesterday. And like I said, a lot of times things don't go exactly like we think, and you just got to make do as you, and call audibles as you move along.
No, I appreciate it, Stephen. Thank you for taking the lead on it and bringing this tonight. I look forward to your
Mr. Chairman.
backup. Yes, Commissioner May.
Commissioner Berry, the Magellan study, will that be the blueprint or the guiding document for the RFP? Well, I guess one, as we're concluding the study, are we concluding payment, and what did we expend on that study? And I say that, Stephen, with all honesty, I don't know enough about broadband, and I'm going to support where you're going. But even in talking to multiple companies, many times these type of studies are done by vendors free of charge. for their counties. And so that bothers me that, if we could have gotten, as you said, sometimes things don't happen as they're intended, but I've had reliable people say that if we were engaged, we do these studies free with no obligation from the county.
So, Mr. Chairman took a call.
And Stephen,
The dynamic on the fourth floor has changed somewhat since the deployment of the first phase and the second phase of the study. I think that there wasn't as much, the board certainly didn't serve as the selection committee for this. We weren't extremely involved in the, drafting the RFP. And, I think the dynamic on the fourth floor has changed quite a bit. And if that was possible,
it was just a question, and probably
know.
not to you, Commissioner Berry. That question probably would be to staff, in stewardship. Sometimes government's famous for doing studies and no implementation. We just study it, and, we do engineering, and then we never implement it. Or is this study, is it of value as we move forward? And maybe it is. Maybe it's of great value, but I would like to hear that this study was something that brought value, and we can use it as a blueprint and I see Bart's in, for where we're going, or is this something that, we spent $300,000 or $400,000 and then we discarded? And so,
as your peer, I think it has value. If at the time that we put out the RFP for partners to do the study, if somebody would have done it for free, that would have been pretty good. And, that idea wasn't floated to me at the time. And, if it was, I would have been pretty interested in it. We just weren't that involved on the front end. Like I said, the dynamic on the fourth floor has changed some. But as far as the value in the study, and Bart can certainly speak more to the technical part of it, but as your peer, for our purposes, does it have value? I view it as, almost like an engineering study. The value is what it was, the value is what somebody's going to pay for it. So we have paid this. Based on the scope of work that was put out, they seem to have performed the scope of work, and again, Bart can speak to that better than me, but it seems that the data and everything that's in there is important. If those things weren't done, we wouldn't be able to potentially qualify for grants in the next couple of months.
And that may add value.
So that has value. And
I'm wondering, could we have gotten that without the cost? But yeah, that's value.
But at least it's done.
It's done.
Even if it could have been done, maybe.
And what I've told providers, because it's not out, if someone says, that we could provide this service, why don't we have a contrast analysis with comparative data if someone was providing that for free? And so for me, I'm certainly going to support wherever you want to go. It's going to have to be, in the procurement, I agree with you. We're going to have to look at the procurement. It is a large lift of taxpayer dollars in terms of how the RFQ goes in, and to me, and for me, local, minority, inclusion, and being able to look at the providers, that's going to be important for me before I vote. And then, the second thing is, I'm going to be very supportive of you moving on the north end. But, I'm going to hear from Bart today, or somebody's going to tell me, I can't utilize the telephone. We had an event at Brownsville Community Center. You can't even put up the Wi-Fi. And so, unfortunately, as we've, in past leadership, not you and not I, not this board at all, we moved millions and billions of dollars for sewer connections, and they forgot about the inner city and the urban cores and those urban areas. And so as we move forward, I want to support you and not hold this. But simultaneously, it has to happen in the urban core, in the inner city for me, because if I don't take advantage of this situation, I'll be 30 years trying to remedy Brownsville, Inslee, and Shantytown that still are on septic tanks because people said, oh, we're going with the growth, and let's forget what exists. And so for me, I want, as that Magellan report, I want staff to be very inclusive, and I want to be, I commend you for being very aggressive and moving up the north end, which I'm side by side with you, but I also want the attention focus on our existing assets in the disadvantaged neighborhoods, the underserved neighborhoods that needs to take place simultaneously. And, you know, as you said, 10 million, 22 million, 32 million, who knows? I mean, when you're talking to these vendors, you know, they'll say on the private side, you know, 22 million was way too much money. I mean, you know, we'll do it for, you know, a third of the cost. Who knows? And so I don't mind. I don't care what the number of the placeholder is. I just want it on a competitive bid and totally inclusive to make us, you know, from going, and for lack of better words, of going to Civicon with Robert, a smart county and not a smart city. And so that's just important to me. And so you have my support, but, you know, I do want to make sure. I mean, we have some of our, you know, we have one of the most historic neighborhoods in Brownsville in the growth, and still the broadband and technology, even on public buildings, people have to go outside to use a telephone. I mean, and that's
I think we got a fellow right out there to help with that
Yeah.
to some degree. But
Bart?
Yeah.
Well, I want, yeah.
I'm sorry, I was pointing at.
Oh, okay.
Friend in the audience, not Bart, but.
I'm sorry, Commissioner. But I mean, that's all. And Stephen, I'm supportive. I just, you know, those are, and until we can't talk, those things are very important to me, you know, and, you know, that's, I still don't have sewer, sidewalks, infrastructure, and I have some things that are of great concern to me.
Right.
And it needs to be told with, as you said, these one-time funds, how do we leverage them? How do we match them? How do we maximize them? And that's, to me, should be a part of the direction in which we're going.
And the maximizing is a big part, and, you know, when the board set aside the 22 million, that's what, you know, based on the first feasibility study that we had, that's where that's where that number came from. That was the estimated cost for the build-out. Well,
From Magellan.
from Magellan.
And that's
So-
why, you know, for me, if I had another free opinion, I mean, because
Well,
I don't know how real
once
the
it-
numbers are.
Well, you know, I don't dispute it at the time, but in December, you know, when this phase of the study was wrapping up, you know, the number came, or January, whenever I was, you know, kind of tuned in or kind of brought into it once the work part was primarily done, you know, the number had moved to 32 million. So now you're starting to, and you know, is the 32 million exactly right? Things are even more expensive now, 3 or 4 months later. So this, again, goes back to some of what I was talking about earlier as far as the risk. We do have a set pot of money, whether it's this money or other money. We've got a fixed amount. And I think, you know, it's going to take, because of this increased construction expenses and those kind of things, it's going to take partnering, I think, to get this full delivery in place. And you know, like I said, if it wasn't for the, you know, a little bit of the change, and Bart, literally the co-location stuff, was that the first time you heard that yesterday morning?
No, we started out with co-location with with Ben Faust and his team. And then about midway through, DOT came back and said we probably can't co-locate, and then they came back yesterday and said they could.
Yeah,
Or
but
possibly can.
for the last 6 months, we were under the premise
Right.
that they weren't going to be able to co-locate.
Right.
So, you know, if that conversation hadn't happened, which is a good conversation, if that hadn't happened, you know, I think we'd be more comfortable moving, you know, more forward with the core part. But it's not going to get put off. I mean, it's just a fact of trying to work out some details with DOT and see what's going to be best for the core project. And I certainly understand what Commissioner May is saying. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, we've had issues in the Civic Center with our phones working in Civic Center. So it's not just, I realize it's not just this issue, but I do think that we've landed it with 2 real distinct projects. But I think we did have enough forethought to set aside enough money to end up successfully accomplishing both projects.
Yep.
And that's a great thing. And that would be a legacy type thing for this
No,
board
I-
to actually get that delivered.
No, I agree, and I appreciate the thorough presentation. Robert, you're recognized.
Thank you. No, you're fine. Going back to what Lumen originally asked, I think, one, we have a product that we would need to draw down those funds. You know, and when the Magellan's first report came back to us, I did feel like, hey, I think we've paid you for a sales job. But I think that there is some meat on this that is useful in us moving forward. And, you know, I mean, we see that some areas to our east are encouraging everyone to go test their internet speed. Well, we were doing that 14 months ago, right? And that's what this report came out of that. And so, you know, I'd say that it's put us on a trajectory that has put us ahead of our peers within the state, and hopefully gives us some of that first bite of the apple of the funds that are available, and that we are able to get access to all parts. So, you know.
And Robert, I appreciate that answer. And my question was not a statement, it was a sincere question after meeting with
Right.
multiple people, what was the value and how great was the value? And then if the answer is it was a lot of value, well, great. So, I mean, I don't want it to be seen as I was an
No, yeah.
antagonist. It was a valid question for a guy that doesn't understand IT. I have to, I guess, lean to my left and get IT advice.
And I'm not saying that. I was just saying that I think we have to have the product that we're looking to approve tonight in order to go after those funds.
We still should become consultants.
Yeah.
So that's smart folks, consultants.
Yeah.
Right on, gentlemen. Any other, Bart, did you want to weigh in on that?
Well, I just wanted to answer Lumen's questions, a couple of things. So one, from a feasibility study, or Commissioner May, excuse me.
No, we're good, Bart.
From a feasibility study, what I will tell you is it's very beneficial because, like you've heard already, without doing the feasibility study, you don't even get on the table to get any of the grant money. So the other thing about Magellan, so Magellan was just one company of about 12 that applied to do the feasibility study and then turned around. We also had another 6 or 7 to do the build and design. So the thing about if somebody's telling you they do it for free, they had the opportunity to tell you they do it for free. What I will tell you is I've had a lot.
Well, it's always after the fact.
Right, yeah, it's
But
always
Cox is
after
right
the fact.
behind you.
Exactly.
I mean,
I've had
you
a
can
lot of
ask them.
vendors come in and tell me, we'll do it. And I say, okay, well, show me your plan. And they're like, oh, it's too expensive. Well, it's easy to say you're going to do it, but put
Absolutely.
your money where your mouth, there you go.
But you can
So-
ask Cox. I mean, they're right behind you.
yeah.
I mean,
So that's our deal is, we had a lot of opportunity for a lot of companies to be in there and do the different things that we've asked them to do. We've met with various different vendors and gave them the opportunity to say, hey, we don't want to do this. It's an easy
And Bart,
solution.
really,
They can do it.
Right. I'm fine. If there's value, my simple question was a very simple question.
Right.
If it had value, is it going to be the blueprint and the guiding document for the RFQ, the RFP,
Right.
and for the solicitation for services? And if what I'm hearing, this is a great document, then what the findings in that document should drive the RFP or the RFQ.
It should.
And
And
that's
100%.
that was to my point.
The-
I don't want to get an RFQ and RFP out. It's kind of like you're going to give me some blueprints to a house, but you're not going to build those blueprints.
Right.
So if we spent money on the blueprints, then the construction should be based on those documents. And that was to my point. And if that's what you're telling me, then I'm good with it.
So we have a
didn't waste money.
design, and then the key will be guidance from the commissioners. So if we say we stick with the design that we have, yes, we can hand that to all as the RFP and say, this is what we want you to design. If we change that design, somebody's going to have to re-engineer that piece of it or tweak it as
And
they
that's my,
go.
why would we change it if we're seeing that they were the experts and they gave us valuable expertise information? Why would we veer from the experts?
It depends how the vendor that we pick was selected, if they're going to do it a different way, if they're not going to serve all of the county facilities or things like that, and they just are going to serve the broadband piece. If they're going to do everything that we've got mapped out, then yes, I think they should stick with that design.
And the only real variance that I'm going to recommend from the design, as a layperson, the only real variance I'm going to require that goes in the RFP or RFQ is that we're not using the wireless access points that it's going to be fiber.
And
to
that
the
it's,
homes.
that it's
And
broken into two.
Yeah, that we're
And-
breaking
and-
into two, but those are not really technical things. I mean, like I said, these engineering folks, for this 3 or 4 or 5 folks that are interested in it, they've already identified, because the FCC has the change from wireless access points to fiber to the homes. These homes have been identified now multiple times, not just by our feasibility study, but they've been identified as part of the grid from the FCC, and so those things exist. That tweak to the plan, I don't think it changes the cost structure because they're doing fiber now rather than wireless access points, but that's the only 2 things I'm really saying that I don't want to implement is I want to divide it into 2 and say, I don't want wireless access point as a real, that's not a real solution. I mean, 5 years from now,
Will it
it's
still
going to
be
be a problem.
cost effective for them? Because it's a lot more expensive to bury the cable and do all the utility locates and Sunshine One Call for every run than it is to just throw up something on a tower.
And a private vendor is going to end up with several $1 million in this as well.
Hopefully.
Well, they're going to, I mean, to pull down the state money, they're going to have several million in. I mean, there's not going to be an award without a private sector having several million in this as well.
You're just going to specify that they run the cable to the house and not use the wireless.
Yeah, I
access
don't
points.
want wireless as any service delivery option. I don't want that as an option.
What if
That's the only
what if they come back and say, we want to put millions in, but we think using the tower is very important to our
Well,
strategy?
hypothetically, I'll deal with that when I cross that. That's not the feedback I'm getting so far, so we'll
Okay,
see. I'll cross, I've got, unfortunately, we got many problems that are already here. I'm going to deal with those, and then the ones that might come in the future, I'll deal with those when
Cross the
they
bridge
get
when
here.
we get there.
Steve, can I ask, Bart, if the projected number that Commissioner Berry is saying, 10 million north of 10 Mile or 9 Mile, to get us where we need to be in our urban core, what do you think that cost will be? What are you projecting, your expert opinion,
So
that's going to be?
just to clarify a few of the numbers, just to make sure we're all on the same page. So Commissioner Berry is 100% right. The original feasibility study said 22.8. As you all know, everything has increased, fiber's increased, doubled, labor, conduit, all of that. The new number is at 32.2. So that's the number we'd be starting at if we did the entire plan for, that Magellan is proposing, it'd be 32.2. Just to do the upper half is 112 miles, which is roughly 16.392 million. The urban core down below, anything below 9.5 mile would be another 15 million of that. The good news on all of that, what I will tell you is we have some triggers to pull. We found out yesterday, $3 million in that number of 32 is crossing the Bay Bridge. They have told us that if we partner with them, we can use the current conduit, so that immediately removes $3 million off that number. So we go from, 32 down to 29.
Who is they? Like one of the
FDOT, FDOT.
FDOT, okay.
FDOT.
Or if
So-
you're starting at 16 or 17, you go 3 off to 17.
Right,
So
if
that's-
you're down to that half number, that's correct.
If you cut the county, say the board, is kind enough to support what I propose, and we do cut the county there. So now we're at maybe 17 is the top number, 16, 17, and we take 3 off of that, and then, I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah.
Please, Bart.
Right. And those are the things, I mean, with FDOT, if they do, the beauty of FDOT, depending on how we do that with them, will be, they would split that cost on their 45 miles. And so that could be another, $7 to $8 million that would come off of that as well. The key that I'm saying on all of this, and the key that we got to watch for, and I told Commissioner Berry this last night, is if we do a third-party vendor, FDOT probably won't partner with us. They're going to want somebody to own the fiber. They don't partner with third parties. And so with us owning it, they were more welcoming to that, but with a third party, they weren't as welcoming. to that.
That's what changes that. I wasn't
Right.
necessarily going to mention that specifically, but that's what changes the southern part of the project considerably, because, they had originally committed, say, between 9 and 10 million towards the 17 that would be south of there. But with that co-location that it seems they're going to allow, that pulls that number down also. That takes,
Right.
what, 5 or 6 million off the cost,
Definitely.
at least 5 or 6 million off that cost. And in that scenario, if by a change in what they're going to allow results in a $5, $6, $7 million decrease in expense, then their contribution of 9 or 10 million that they committed to me last week, it probably comes down pro rata. Maybe it ends up being 4, 5, 6 million. If it's 6 million, that's. But we're now operating off of a lower top number also because of that co-location concession. I mean, or partnership, not concession. Because of that co-location partnership, we're operating not off of 17 as a top number. We're operating off of a lesser top number. So if their contribution is a little lesser, we're still in a lot better position. So all of that stuff is good news, but it is different. I mean, and it's just been very recent different. So I just.
Well,
So what we're saying, that you would externally do the north end, and you would have to in-house for FDOT money, the south end is what I'm confused.
It sounds like that there's still, and, I very much appreciate DOT's willingness to engage with me for the last 6 months or 9 months. I
Right,
mean, all this,
absolutely.
and the TSOC conversation began last spring, and, and we might have an agreement for that on the board meeting in 2 weeks. We expect an agreement for that, for the acreage they need at public safety. So all these things just have taken a while.
But that was contingent upon us doing the broadband project. That was part of their rationale for selecting us.
Yeah, that's part of all of it, absolutely. So I don't know exactly what the southern, or what the core county project's going to look like, but it sounds as if we may end up there, Commissioner May. But I do think over the next week or two, I'll be able to firm that up. It does sound like that may end up being where we are, because that amount of contribution from DOT, and that amount of, I mean, the $3 million just across the bridge, which is big deal for your constituents, maybe a small number, but an active number on the island.
When you go to the
we'll
beach,
say
you
that.
want to be disconnected. You don't want to be connected when you're
Well,
on the
that's
beach.
a matter of perspective.
That's why you go
maybe.
to the beach.
That, they may not share that perspective.
No,
They're an active
probably
number.
not.
They're a small but active number out there. But that's a huge deal, Robert. So I don't know. If y'all would just give me the indulgence for another couple
No,
of weeks to
I fully
continue
support
working.
it.
I'm not sure exactly what we come back with in 2 weeks, but I do think it's good. It's better than I thought 2 days ago. I think financially, it's a better situation than it was a couple days ago.
Right, and certainly, Steve and Bart, only thing I ask is, that we immediately get the plan for the south end. I mean, if you have a CO that can't use their cell phone inside a jail building, or you have somebody in a community center that can't do a presentation, I mean, that's critical for these neighborhoods as well. So, I mean, I want to, and as you said, Stephen, it's a one shot for all. Let's go. And so, obviously, I mean, there's a dire need in the north end of the county, particularly, for the growth in the rural community. But there has been traditionally an absence of services in the urban core disadvantaged and poor neighborhoods. And, it's going to be critical for me that those poor neighborhoods get addressed.
So if you look at the design, Commissioner May, that the good news is when you look at that design, it covers everything. So it goes, all the way to Pensacola Beach, all the way through the urban core. It goes all the way out. We've got our plan would have a pop site out at OLF 8 so that it could serve anybody there. So any vendor could go in and if we were building it, they would lease fiber from us and be able to serve the entire county throughout all neighborhoods. And so that's some of the things that it could do for you now. If we go to a vendor funded or a vendor private partnership that we can do that as well. We just got to work the whole piece out with FDOT. That'll be the biggest piece.
And Steve, I'll tell you, for my support, I want to see on the private side. I mean, it's very challenging to in-house, technology as technology continues to change, and government doesn't change as fast as technology.
And it may end up, Commissioner, it may end up, FDOT's, if not our, if they're not our most important partner, they have to be one of those, one of our top, couple of most important partners for all of our districts. I mean, I know certainly for mine. I mean, it's just such a huge transportation and such a huge impact for my constituents, and this delivery of those projects is just of paramount importance. And their excitement and engagement in this project has been extreme, and the commitment. When I was so relieved about the commitment to the financial part of it last week that I got from them, and then with that additional offer of partnership about the co-location, what we may end up doing, even though I'm asking the board to kind of say, put a line of delineation at, say, 10 Mile tonight, and Bart, I didn't talk to you about this morning or last night, but we may end up with something where, my plan was conversation of putting everything, on that other side of what you just said, Lumen, is bring our private partners on so we have no, ongoing risk. Now, the news about FDOT stuff, I think that it seems as if that's a big enough financial benefit that it's worth our while to try to navigate how to keep them as that engaged partner on the funding side and on the partnership side. And Bart, maybe when it's looked at and over the next couple of weeks, we can spend some more time with you and I and DOT and stuff, and maybe there's a way to have us do what they would require us to do in the full footprint of their ATMS system, and then we put out for RFP everything outside of that they would have no involvement in, but that would still be part of this construction project, because there is still considerable miles that they would not be involved in, even in the southern core. So I'm asking the board now tonight to kind of delineate this whole county. Maybe in 2 weeks, maybe we end up delineating the southern project to be the ATMS portion and the non-ATMS portion. Maybe that's where maybe we end up with something like that where, that's the RFQ that we're putting out. And we say, for this portion that's ATMS related, this is going to be the county as the primary. Everything else, which is still going to be, is just ballpark the miles, are they about half of the miles of the fiber? And
Yes, sir. We have
Of the
in the
southern
south end below 9.5 is 108, and they're 45 of the 108.
and theirs would all be kind of delivery to places, which is, per mile, that's going to, I would assume, construction-wise, it's going to be more expensive to get the smaller pieces, the ancillary arms off of the ring away from their lights, right?
So the way we've got it designed, pretty much it's going to be, that's what we're meeting with them today on, is to get the actual pull boxes mounted where they want them, or placed where they would want them. So it's pretty close to where we are with the prices you've already heard.
So maybe in 2 weeks, maybe that's where we end up, where we delineate even the southern portion to the ATMS-related build-out and the non-ATMS-related build-out. That sounds like that may make sense, because I want us to be as little involved going forward as possible. And that's what I was planning on talking about all today until discussions yesterday. But now with those yesterday, maybe we do stay, stay involved in that portion. That includes the ATMS, the DOT part, but at least we're not involved in the rest. And that's what's going to include really the delivery to, to residences, to our centers, to those kind of things, because that fiber, the ATMS fiber is not going to be running to our community centers necessarily. They're going to be just between their lights. So that's so maybe that's where we end up with even dividing it in half tonight and then dividing it kind of in half again in 2 weeks, and maybe that's the best thing. And what that does, that may, if we divide the southern portion into two projects, the ATMS related, non-ATMS related for that build out, and that's seen as maybe two different projects, maybe it opens us up to a little bit more grant money, because you are keeping private sector investment in there at least on half of that project. So maybe that would be a good thing long-term for us. I don't know.
We'll need to look at the numbers. The challenge is trenching, is when you want to save, that's your big savings on labor. So if we can trench all, 4 or 5 conduits at one time versus doing it as 2 separate projects and keep that, that's where we're really going to drive. That's what we've been able to do, is drive that down on those 45 miles.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, maybe not, and I may have misspoke, maybe not two projects by the county project numbers, but at least the board approaching it with two mindsets. Even being one project, the board has 2 mindsets, saying, well, this is, kind of what's going to be perpetually public because it's related to the ATMS. This is going to end up being private over here. Maybe, but same project, but kind of delineated by the board that way. Maybe that makes sense.
All right, any other discussion on the topic? I think we'll probably have some more tonight, depending upon what you bring. But Stephen, I want to thank you for all the work, and obviously you've done your homework, your research. And there are some concerns, and I appreciate Commissioner May's concerns. I share some of the same ones. The only thing on the last point that you made, Stephen, is some government bureaucrat somewhere might say, well, you're incrementalizing it. In other words, this is what you really want to do, you're breaking it up, because they do that. Sometimes you can't do that and then go after the same money. But I look forward to what you bring tonight with an open mind. I think the ATMS thing is very important, and so if we can add that to tonight, I think that would be a good thing. But I look forward to the continued discussion this evening. Anything else from you, Allison?
I'm
Lumen?
sorry, I probably will, just to be clear, I probably will, or certainly be asking the board to take action on, on the north portion to move forward. It's not awarding anything, just moving forward. But the southern portion probably will, we'll have whatever discussions we're able to, and I don't know if anybody's able to gather any more information during the day today, but the bigger plan will be to bring that back for discussion in 2 weeks, and then be taking the same action on, the same action that I'd be asking y'all to take on the north part tonight.
And you're bringing that yourself?
Yeah, unless anyone objects, I will be happy to. Just
Yeah,
I'm pretty
Steve,
far
you've
along
taken
in
the
these
lead.
conversations with DOT and
Why don't
stuff,
you just
so.
take the lead on it?
But it won't be long. Just give me one more meeting.
Yeah, no.
Steve, I don't think that, 5 commissioners ought to be calling FDOT. Whoever is swimming in that lane, I believe that they should swim in that lane. That's one of the reasons I may have an add-on tonight.
That's why I didn't say anything about the letters we're sending. Other people have been working on those. So
Well, think everybody stays in their lane, and so I'll actually bring probably an add-on tonight.
And
about
what,
that.
and you, any clue as to what it's going to be about?
I think, each of us in our lane, as we represent the board, it's hard for 5 people to be calling the same state entity and to get
Absolutely.
results and to represent this board publicly.
Yep, nope, very good. Okay, well, anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none, we're adjourned.